Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show.
You meet someone online and there's this instant connection. It's amazing how much the two of you just seem to click. They live somewhere far away and there's some plausible reason they can't travel to meet you. They tell you they're in love with you and you feel optimistic for the first time in a long time. They have a successful career, yet somehow they need money from you to solve a short-term problem, always with the promise of paying you back. Time goes on and they need more money more urgently. You've started to see the cracks and begin to wonder whether they've been lying this whole time. All of a sudden, it hits you. You've been scammed. Fool Me Twice is the story of my mother, Jules Hannaford, a woman who was drawn into the dangerous world of sweetheart scams. After a trip overseas to meet a stranger, a dangerous altercation in a Manchester hotel room, and thousands of pounds lost for good, she's here to tell her story. Fool Me Twice, a true crime podcast, is available on Apple Podcasts, Ozcast Network, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Today I'm here with Benita Chick. Thank you so much for meeting me today, Benita. How are you?
Doing good.
Great. Benita, tell me a little bit about your childhood. What was your childhood like and what sort of child were you?
I think I'm a very energetic child. I always like to go out and explore things. My mom is not very conventional. She doesn't force me to do a lot of lessons and stuff, but I actually took the initiative. I said I want to learn piano and all that. I'm a single child. I spend a lot of time playing by myself. I play with toys and all that. But I would say, yeah, it's a very energetic, very happy childhood. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Did you fit in with other children when you were younger or were you more of a loner?
I can get social, but I think when I was more in the middle school, high school, I do feel a bit lonely. Maybe because of the interest that I have. I was very passionate about diving and marine biology, whereas my other classmates were very concerned about schoolwork. There were at times I don't feel fit in, but for the most time, I think I do have very good friends. But I don't know if it's a matter of Pisces or some stuff, but sometimes I do get sentimental and I will hide in a corner and just by myself.
Were you sort of deeply emotional when you were a teenager?
I think when a teenager, and I also have a family problem then. My parents are going through divorce. My dad is abusive at times. Sometimes I don't know how to explain that to my friends, so it is a little bit difficult.
I'm sorry to hear that. How did the divorce and your dad being abusive impact you as a teenager, do you think?
I think it actually gave me more mental strength. I was very determined that I want to do well in school. So my mom would not be worried about me. So my mom would support being a single parent and try to give the best to me. And the best I can do is to do well in my school so she won't be worried. I did very well in my high school. I was almost the top of my class. Yeah.
Oh, really? Brilliant. That's great. I didn't do very well at high school. Never mind. Benita, when did you realise that you were queer? Or did you realise, first of all, that you were queer? Because I know that's how you identify now, but did you know that language when you were a teenager?
I went to a Catholic girls' school in Hong Kong. I think I started to know that I have feelings for other girls when I was 12. Being a lesbian is very normal in a girls' school, but I did experiment with my sexuality when I was in university. I went to Cornell, I went to US, and I did have a kind of a Jewish boyfriend. I was exploring with the other sex. Like if you were going to identify myself now, I would say I'm more queer than lesbian because I do have some tendency of liking guys. In Cantonese, I would say that term would be no label. So I identify as a tomboy. I'm more like flexible and fluid in my sexuality.
How did that impact you as a teenager, realising that you were different to many of the other kids?
I think actually being queer in my school was very easy. because it's a girls' school, I think almost 1/3 of the girls at some point in the high school have experimented with being with a girl. That part was easy. I think it's more of my interest and as I said, from a single family, that makes me feel more lonely than they're being queer.
How is being queer accepted in Chinese culture these days?
I think it really depends on your family. If you have a very, let's say, religious, strictly Christian family, it might be difficult. It's a stereotype, but I think girls are easier than guys of being gay, and because there are still certain Chinese culture that if you're the guy, you need to get married and have a kid. Girls relatively have this better time. I do think that times have changed. It's much more easy and acceptive. But my ex, she hasn't come out to her parents at all. She's a professor at a university, very well respected, but she's very scared to come out to her parents. So I think it really depends on how accepted for her parents are. For my mom, it was initially when I came out to her, it was a shock. She didn't expect it. But I think in the last few years, she has come to terms that I'm a lesbian. That's the style I want to carry with my life.
How old were you when you came out to your mum?
I was 18 when I was in uni.
How did it impact your self-esteem when your mum was shocked and she wasn't initially as accepting as you might have hoped?
I was actually quite shocked that she didn't expect that because I brought my girlfriend to my home and stay over. I always thought she knew. My mom was a very religious Catholic, and at first it was very hard for her. I think it's only because of my last girlfriend, which we had a really good relationship with, and she became more accepting of this lifestyle. And right now, my mom is very okay for me to hang out with different gay or queer friends, and we do stuff together, we have dinner together. And actually, my mom is quite supportive for me for do the LGBT advocacy work. So I have been quite active in this area, and she would come and show her support. So I think it's really a transformation of how she reacts to my queerness.
That's really brilliant to hear. I think it's a real lesson for many other gay kids if they're coming out and their parents are initially not very supportive. Time can help them to change their attitudes, and you can help to educate your parents and help them to understand that it's not a choice, it's just who you are and how you're born.
Mm-hmm.
Benita, tell me a bit about the LGBTQ advocacy work that you do. What are you doing at the moment?
I did a few things. In 2016, I started a LGBT in the City tour. That's the only Asian tour where we were bringing people to look at gay bars, gay sauna, looking at court cases and stuff. And then afterwards, I was campaigning for the Gay Games in Hong Kong in 2022. And more recently, for the last 2 years, I was the director for IDAHOT, which stands for International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. So I was the director, and I did school talks, I did corporate talks, I have a public events. Right now, this year is a little bit more quiet because I started my own company, Encompass. But I do go to universities regularly to give a sharing of what was being LGBT like in Hong Kong.
Tell me a little bit more about your group Encompass.
Yeah, so I started Encompass in 2018. Previously, I've been working in different environmental and youth NGO. And I came across the UN SDG in 2017, and I thought it's a great thing. More people in Hong Kong needs to know about it. So the survey has shown only 15% of Hong Kong people know what SDG is. So I started as a social enterprise, and basically is to promote the UN SDG, and we use an experiential learning approach. So there's no lecture. You come to my program, maybe it's sustainable coffee, maybe it's music therapy. Hopefully, we'll teach you a few things about the SDG. So the main focus is on wellness. So we have some program like singing bowl, music therapy. We have gender equality. So we do education, LGBT inclusive language workshop. And then we have responsible consumption and production, which we do the sustainable coffee and biodynamic wine. It has been an amazing journey. Last year, we have over 30 different public and corporate programs. And I've also written op-ed on the area. Hopefully more people will know about this and why is this important.
Benita, that's amazing. I can't believe that only 15% of the population know about the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm really surprised at that number. That's so low. Why do you think that is?
I think maybe that has to do something with the government campaign. So the government does have a Council for Sustainable Development, which is under EPD, the Environmental Protection Department. But they have done very little work in the public about why SDG is important. So other than just if you're in the environmental or if you're in the NGO field, you might have heard of it. But if you're a general public, because there's so much, you don't see it on TV, you don't see it in effort. Whereas in some city in the world, for example, Madrid or Singapore, there's a big government campaign and you can see signs everywhere. So I think the awareness in Hong Kong, has been very low, unfortunately. I think in university are better. I know, like, for example, Hong Kong U or UST, they have SDG campaign. But if I'm just a lay person, just doing regular finance job, and if my company doesn't have a policy, there's no way I would know about this.
Right. So, we're definitely teaching about the Sustainable Development Goals in our international school where I work. So I think the younger generation, like you say, the uni students and the high school students are hopefully learning about it. But I guess through Encompass, who are you working with? Are you working mostly with corporations or individuals or schools or a whole mix of people?
A whole mix of people. We have a fair bit of corporate program where we work with corporates and deliver, for example, employee engagement workshop or green workshop. We also work with NGOs. So, for example, last year we worked with an NGO called Chatteris Education Foundation, where they are supporting students who are underprivileged. So we have a sustainable coffee event with them. But basically, it's teaching English through coffee. So instead of just teaching grammar, we're using coffee as a medium for teaching. And also, a lot of our programs are public as well. You can see my background is a Hoi Ha. So we have eco tours to Hoi Ha, to Lim Tin Zai, to Mui Wo, and those are open to public. So it's a mix of stakeholders that we serve.
Wow, that's great. You're doing so much in the sustainability world and really starting to make a difference. Have you been featured in Green Queen Media?
Yeah. I have written in Green as an op-ed. They also promote Encompass me because I've done the gender equality work. So I've been featured there as well. Last year, I did this called the Green Women Festival, where on the International Women's Day, I have 400 women and they are from different backgrounds. Some of them are migrant workers. Some of them are genderqueer. Some of them are disabled. And the reason my company is called Encompass is I want to be as inclusive as possible. So I have this event and everything is bilingual. And so it's really a good mix of people. Unfortunately, this year with the virus, I haven't been able to do it. But once it comes out, I'm very much into doing it because it was a big hit last year.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I can't believe you had 400 people. Was that the first time you'd done that event?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Women's Days event, but not one with an environmental theme. So I think when I first launched it last year, it was really popular.
And do you have an aspect of the SDGs that you're most passionate about? Like, is it quality education or gender equality or the environment or education?
Yeah, as I said, I think it will be wellness, which I think because mental health is such a big issue right now in Hong Kong. And then gender, which is something that I've been for the last few years. And for gender equality, I'm not just looking at gender as male and female, I'm also looking at intersectionality of this. So like how race or religion or different background have interact with gender equality, and also responsible consumption and production. And the reason a lot of my program is based on responsible consumption and production is because this is actually the least care about SDG with Hong Kong people, surprisingly, with Hong Kong as a consumerism society. And I think that's something that every of us can do. We can bring our own coffee cup. We can be more mindful of our shopping behavior, buying secondhand clothes. And that's not something that requires the government. I'm a bit pessimistic about the government effort in promoting sustainability, but I think individuals can make a very big difference.
Well, there are a lot of individuals like you in Hong Kong trying to make a difference, particularly around waste and consumerism. And it's kind of like a lifestyle in Hong Kong that we have where it's a very throwaway society and there's quite a lot of money here. And I think people like to spend a lot of money to gain status. Not everybody, but some people. And I think that like having conversations like this will hopefully get people thinking about their spending and their consumer habits and think about how we're affecting the planet with our use of plastics and our use of textiles. And there's so many ways that we can make a difference. So it's amazing that you're getting out there and really sort of educating people about these issues. And I congratulate you on doing that because we need more people like you in Hong Kong. And I think you're doing an amazing job. Tell me a little bit about your TED Talk. You did a great TED Talk, which I love, by the way. I listened to the whole thing and it was really fantastic. Tell me what that was about.
Yeah, so I did a TED Talk last April in Chinese U, and the title is Discover Yourself, Being Different, Being Yourself. And basically, I told my journey, which I studied marine biology and I started as a scuba diver, how that led to me discover myself, my true passion, and to the work now I do. So I basically drew an analogy of the different biodiversity to the D&I work and I do and the SDG. And I really believe each of us is unique and we have a different path and somebody have a more straight path than another. But you just need to understand your strength and weakness and build on that. So yeah, that was fun, the TED Talk.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And I love the way that you talked about how diving helped you to find yourself. Tell me a little bit more about that. How did diving help you feel comfortable in your own skin and happy with who you are?
As I said, I had a difficult moments as a teenager because of my family. And sometimes I feel depressed. Sometimes I feel lonely. Diving for me is a meditation. It's very peaceful down there. Nobody disturb you. And I really enjoy being at the moment and looking at the animals. I started diving really young. I started diving when I was 15 and I got my instructor license as I was 18. It was a way for me to gain my confidence about the world. And after the diving, actually one of my first jobs is at Overbound to teach people with different ability. And since I left Overbound, I don't do the outdoor training anymore very often. I still use diving as a tool to engage different people. So I have been teaching people who are disabled on wheelchair. I've been teaching kids who are having Asperger's syndrome or autistic. And I just find diving is just a very liberating experience when you're underwater, that you are able to really engage with the surrounding. And especially for the disabled students I have, if in the land they have difficulty moving, in the water they are much more agile.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're weightless, aren't you? And it's easier to move about. So there's a level of freedom, isn't there, that they wouldn't have on land perhaps.
Yeah, and diving has brought me into many places. I did marine biology in uni and for my master, and I have worked and lived for my field work in Australia, Mexico, Solomon Island, Indonesia. I spent 6 months in Indonesia. So those really form part of me. So right now, although I don't do marine biology or diving full time, I still try to teach maybe 20 to 30 students every year and really bring them to see the other side of the world.
What is it about you that makes you so keen to give back to the community and to make a difference in other people's lives? Where does that come from, do you think?
I think partly it's my religion. By being Catholic, my mom has always told me to give back. The reason is I think I mostly had a really privileged childhood and teenager. Even though my family is broken, I did very well. And I think that experience really transformed me to able to give back to the community with my skills. I think I've been very fortunate. I've been very lucky with what I do. I've had really good colleagues and boss, and I hope to use my ability to empower other people that they can pursue their thing. I do want to mention one thing. So there's one reason I started the LGBT tour. That's a very personal story. Is I fell in love with my diving student a few years ago. She was straight. She have never been with girls, and we were together for half a year, very happy together. She's from a very elite family, very privileged background. I've always said we need to kind of be careful of what we do because your parents wouldn't like that you be with a girl. So one day when we were hanging out in IFC, which everybody go to IFC, she gave me a goodbye kiss. And unfortunately, one of her family saw that and reported back her to her mom. So just like a TV drama, she stopped talking to me completely after that. She said her family find out and they're ashamed of her hanging out with a woman.
Oh.
Of not hanging out, but going out with a woman. So I was really depressed then. I really love her. And that's actually the motivation of me to doing the LGBT world is I want people to know that being queer, being different is okay. And there's a lot of people who understand you and in similar shoes out there. So that's actually one of my biggest motivation to do the LGBT work of having that personal experience.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And thank you so much for sharing that experience with us. I think it's really, really sad that people can't follow their hearts because of the reaction or the influence of other people around them. I mean, that really does epitomize why inclusivity and diversity is so important and the fact that we need to understand that and we need to educate people about it. And I'm so sorry that happened to you, but something bad has turned into something good because you're helping other people and you've started the LGBTQ advocacy work and the tours, which sound fantastic. What a good idea. Do you get lots of people coming on the tours?
Yeah. We have done the tour over 50 times now with different school groups, corporates. Half of them are tourists. And some of them, for example, I've had a gay couple, they're over 80 years old. And they said, I'm too old to go to gay bar, but I want to learn more about LGBT. So they come. And I've also have a lot of university lecturers or staff who come because they want to have a better understanding of the students. I've also have struggling teenagers who might be questioning about their sexuality. They want to know more about the community. I've also have straight people who said, I've never been to a gay bar, but I'm very curious what it looks like, and they come. So I do get all sorts of people who come to the tour. And I really think for any D&I topic is one of the most important elements, exposure. If you don't understand what that community is like, you will have a lot of misunderstanding or judgment or assumption. So I think to being exposed on that is important. And yeah, I think tour has been a great educational tool for a lot of people.
It is a really great tool because it's interactive and you're going to different places and you're learning along the way. So it's not like just sitting in a classroom. And many people learn better that way, like you say, by immersing themselves in the community. I'm straight, but every time I've ever been to a gay bar or any gay event, I have just felt absolutely 100% welcome. It doesn't matter whether you're gay, straight, bi, or wherever you fit on the spectrum, you're always welcome in that community. Just like with the gay games, anybody can compete. You don't have to be a member of the LGBTQ plus community. So it just shows that that community is so inclusive. It's the other communities that aren't necessarily, and that's where all of this work is so helpful. Tell me what green dating and green drinking is and why you invented these concepts.
Green dating came from the Green Woman Festival. I have a friend, her nickname is called Good Morning, and she is a sexuality KOL.
It's called what? Sorry, say it again.
Good Morning, MOANING.
Oh, good moaning.
Good morning. Yeah.
Brilliant. Her nickname's Good Moaning. Okay.
So she has been educating people about masturbation, about getting comfortable with your body and your partner. So last year I told her I have this Green Woman Festival. And I said, can you come up with something that's healthy about dating? And so she has this presentation where she was talking about how to, instead of using toys or whatever, you can use like a natural massage with some aromatic oil to stimulate your partner, or using organic lubricant, or using different green elements in your dating life. So I think that people really enjoyed it, and using a different angle to look at organic way of dating. And for the green drinking, so I have two programs. One is sustainable beer and one is biodynamic wine. I'm a very heavy alcohol drinker, and I like to tell people that you can drink, but with good impact for the environment. So for example, the beer program, I work with this local brewery called City Brew, and the production method is very sustainable. And for example, the glass, the beer bottle is being reused, not recycled. So they actually reuse their own bottle, and also the production method, the water consumption. So I want to educate people about that. And another program is biodynamic wine. So I don't know if you heard of that. Biodynamic wine basically is treating the soil as important as the grape. And there are different days where you are planting or harvesting the grapes. So it's called flower, leaf, fruit day. And because of that, there will be less fertilizer and less pesticide being used, meaning that your wine will have less sulfite. And that means less hangover.
Oh, right. Interesting.
So maybe I can share with you the link so you can share with your audience. I actually have presentation on this and just educating people that you can be a responsible drinker.
Yeah, I think there'd be a lot of people very interested in that if there means less hangovers. So yeah, let's put the link to that in the show notes. That'll be great. Benita, you mentioned earlier about mental health issues and that's quite a problem in Hong Kong. Do you think it's gotten worse at the moment because of the virus?
Yeah, I think definitely it's getting more PTSD. I mean, personally, for myself, I think I have quite a bit of that last year because of the social unrest. I feel very sad about what's happening. I'm a little bit better now. So
so you mean from the protests in Hong Kong that really affected you emotionally?
Yeah, because
I think it's hit a lot of people.
Yeah. And then another initiative I'm working on is called the Hong Kong Dialogue Hour, where we are trying to provide a safe space for people to discuss current issues. So I've started that with two other friends last November. And tomorrow, actually, we'll have a section to talk about mental health and how the virus have affected us and what are some ways we can effectively deal with it. I think just the mere fact that some people can get together and discuss that in a safe environment, that itself is therapeutic. I think because right now with the social distancing, it's really tough on a lot of people to not have that regular interaction. It's really not healthy for an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say that. I think just the fact of being able to have people get together and share their fears and their anxieties will be super helpful because we have all been very isolated for a long time now. Like we're going into about week 13 or something of social isolation. So it's been going on for a long, long time in Hong Kong. We are very lucky that we can get out and about a little bit if we're very careful. But having said that, I think one of the reasons why the virus numbers are so low is because everybody's so disciplined in Hong Kong and they are social distancing and wearing masks and taking a lot of care. And I think that even though people can get together in small groups, most people are still choosing to stay home most of the time. And I think there's just a level of anxiety in the community that's just risen because of the virus and the social distancing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. So not for the virus, but for the unrest, I've actually done some music therapy support program. So for people who are unable to articulate their feelings in words, they can use music to express their anxiety or concern. Right now, with the social distancing, it's a bit difficult to do it in person, but that's why we have the dialogue hour to give people a space. I really think that even just catching up with friends over Zoom or having somebody to talk to is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time I step outside and see somebody and talk to them, I just want to stay with them for ages because I feel like I haven't spoken to people for a long time in person. So I really do understand that. Tell me about your work as a coach. Is that some of what you're doing with these getting-togethers to talk about mental health? Is that your coaching work or is that something different again?
I have studied as a coach, as an international associate coaching, but I haven't do like one-on-one coaching. I think it's more I've incorporated coaching in the program that I do, whether it's experiential learning, sustainability program, which I do quite a bit of training, and now the dialogue hour. For the dialogue hour, I would say it's more facilitation than coaching because we are not trying to lead people somewhere, but I just want to give that safe space. But I do think coaching skill is important, and I do use a lot of coaching skill when I teach the diving.
In your TED Talk, you talk about the 3Ds. Can you tell me what they are?
Discover, diversity, and being different.
Tell me a bit about why they are important words to you.
Finding about yourself, what your true strengths are. It took me a while. I think I'm still discovering the potential of myself.
Me too, and I'm in my mid-50s.
I think we are all constantly evolving and we shouldn't stop at one place. We should continue to find out what makes us work, what makes us passionate. So I think discover is important. And diversity is people come in all sorts of shape and sizes, background, beliefs, and to understand that and how to work with different people, that's important. And being different is not afraid of being yourself, being authentic. I think sometimes in Asian culture, we are very easy to conform. We're like, oh, I must be somebody else. I must be a doctor. I must be a lawyer. So for me, I think I was saying I was struggling as a teenager because my parents and my teachers always say, you should be a doctor because I did very well in biology. But I have known since I was a kid that I'm passionate about animals, but not people. I mean, I like humans, but I don't want to practice medicine. I very much like to learn about the animals. So I think it's just being true to your belief and like what you want. And I think a lot of Hong Kong kids are struggling with that because of all the parental pressure. They are forced to study certain things. And when they come out, they do certain career. And I think especially now with the gig economy, a lot of us can be slash. So for example, I'm a slash. I have my own company. I teach diving. I lead tour. And I like all of what I do. And I really think now is the time, especially with the virus now, the whole economy is changing. We need to be more flexible in what we do and find our own niche. Maybe you're a very good designer. Maybe you're a very good crafter. You can use that skill and make a difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the virus has made people rethink about the ways that they do things and thinking outside the box so that they can still earn money or connect with people and doing it in different ways. Like we're doing now. Normally, I always interview in person. It's only since the virus that I've interviewed on Zoom. And it's interesting because I'm getting more and more used to it. I feel like I'm getting better at it. But the first time I did it, I didn't like it at all because I didn't feel like I had the same connection as I have with somebody sitting in a room with them. And I think that I've had to adapt there, and it shows that you can adapt. It's fine. It's actually working well. So it's no problem. And I think that that's really, really a good reminder for us all that we need to be able to go with the flow and adapt and adjust and make the best of whatever situation that we're in. I wanted to ask you about, I don't know where I saw this, so forgive me. I don't know if I read this or if it was in your TED Talk, but you had an experience with 9/11. Tell me what that was and how that impacted you.
Yeah, I was in university. I was in year 2 when 9/11 happened. I was in the middle of a physics class and we were talking about mechanics. And we actually have a question on a plane that is going like this way and hit a tower. So we were calculating the trajectory of that motion using...
No way.
Exactly, yeah. In the middle of the class, suddenly there was a big commotion outside and everybody was trying to see what happened. And I heard the World Trade Center was being dropped off and I was terrified. And the reason is because my mom used to work in Bank of America and her headquarters is there. I was being very bad because my mom travels very frequently back then. And I don't even know whether she's in Hong Kong or she's in New York City. I have no idea. And because back then we didn't have WhatsApp, right? I lost track where she is and I was completely terrified. I was like, shit, is my mom in the tower? So I immediately called my mom. Very luckily, she's at home in Hong Kong, but 3 of her colleagues did die during the tragedy. And I remember I was also living in the International Living Center. I was one of the resident advisors in the dormitory. And everybody knows somebody in New York because we are International Living Center. We have people from all sorts of religion. Some are Muslim, some are Catholic, all different backgrounds. And I remember that night, all of us were in the room. All of us are traumatized. And there was a huge discussion on ideology. Why did that happen? Why is the hatred? What happened? And there was some hate speech as well for people who are with a different background. I think that is sadly, one of my most memorable moments in university. But also, I think it makes me realize how important for us to understand the different side. Obviously, terrorism is a horrible thing, but we need to understand the root of terrorism. Why are people so angry? What caused it to happen? And how can we prevent it? Instead of just pointing fingers at the other people. And that's what I'm trying to do right now with my D&I and the dialogue. Our work is even people with a different belief. We need to understand where they are from and try to find a middle ground. I think just right now in Hong Kong, especially with the protests last year, there's a lot of hatred. People with different political background, you will get attacked in social media, just turn really ugly. And I really think we should learn from what happened and try for that understanding ground. Yeah.
And it just comes back to diversity and inclusivity again. So that was just another event that made you really have a greater, deeper understanding of these issues. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think as a coach, as a facilitator, I try to keep the friends who have different beliefs with me. I really think that just listening to them, I don't know about you, Jules, but I have a lot of friends who is unfriending each other last year.
Oh, really? Because of the protests?
Because of the protests.
And because of different opinions? Yeah, I haven't had that experience, but my friend is American and she's had a lot of people unfriending her because of her, negative attitudes toward Trump, I guess. There's Trump supporters over there that her friend and they're deleting her because of political issues. So it can be really, really controversial, can't it?
Yeah. So I really think it's sad that our world is like increasing polarizing in many different parts of the world. I really hope and it's my sincere wish this virus is going to wake each of us up. We are humanity as a whole. We are all connected and each of our actions affected each other. Yeah, it's just sometimes saddening to look at the global politics.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe you're right. Like maybe because this is a global pandemic and it's affecting virtually everybody in the world, maybe some good will come out of it in that we realise that we are all one people and that we shouldn't discriminate and that we shouldn't hate and we shouldn't fight. Hopefully things will change, but I think it's going to take some time.
Yep.
Yeah. And people like you who are doing this kind of work really do make a difference. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. I really admire the diversity of what you're doing. You're doing so many things. I don't know how you manage it all at once. It's unreal. Benita, the world is changing. And what advice would you give to young people today about making a difference and navigating their own way in the world?
I think it goes back to the 3D I was mentioning, is to discover, find your own strength and understand the diversity of the world, the diversity of the job you can do and being authentic. I really think with the global economy now, everybody have their own niche of what they are doing. Okay, and one more advice I would say is don't bound by what you are studying. Just because you are studying business doesn't mean you need to do business. You can try out different things and explore.
Yeah, because you studied marine biology, but you're doing so many things that aren't related to that at all.
Yeah, I kind of really deviate from what I do, but I like the training. And I think whether it's university or whatever training you have, treasure the opportunity because you will never know whether skill will lead you somewhere. So even you don't get into your dream subject, it's fine. I think most of us who are now in the middle age realize how much you study, it doesn't matter. It's how you take your career, how you treat people, how you make the connections between different things. And for me, making connections is very important. It's how I link my different part of my work together, how I transfer one knowledge to another. I think that's a very important part of my world. And I encourage young people to make their connections out there. And whether it's volunteering, a paid opportunity, a non-paid opportunity, treat it the same. They are all important because you wouldn't know who will give you that opportunity later in your life.
That's absolutely brilliant. And you're so right that relationships are the cornerstone of everything that we do, really, connections. So I think that that's brilliant, brilliant advice. And for people that bully people, that person that you're bullying might end up being your boss one day.
Yep.
You know, you just don't know where these relationships are going to head in the future. So it really pays just to be kind and respectful and nice to everybody. And that's what we want more of in the world, I think.
Totally.
What are you most proud of in your life, Benita?
I think being able to tell people that the person that I am, that I'm queer, I wasn't that out a few years ago. It wasn't until incident I told you that I've become really proud. And I've actually have a lot of young students who come up to me and they said they're really inspired by my story, that I'm being able to truthfully live my life and do the work that I do. I think especially because there are not as many lesbians who come out as gay men. And I've had a lot of close relationship with some of these teenagers, and they would message me and tell me about their troubles. And I think just being authentic and being who you are, that's what I'm proud of. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid of telling people who I am.
That's brilliant. You're such a fantastic role model. And it's so great that something so positive came out of such a difficult situation for you when you were younger. But you've been able to really turn it around and make it into something really meaningful and something that helps others, which is just fantastic. So even though it was really sad and terrible, and I'm sure very heartbreaking for you at the time, you have been able to turn it into something good. And I think there's a lesson for others in that as well, that out of bad things, positive things can grow. So even if you're feeling depressed or anxious or upset or the worst has just happened, if you wait, then something positive can come out of it. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. There's always a silver lining. I didn't have much of a difficulty when I was in a teenager sympathy force. And having this experience really humbles me.
Oh, that's brilliant. What's your greatest fear, Benita?
Greatest fear.
Why are you laughing?
I have a personal angle and a more wide angle. The personal angle is I'm very close to my mom, and I fear that one day she'll be gone because she has been just a very emotional childhood support. And the other more broader thing is I'm scared that Hong Kong will no longer have one country, two system. I love Hong Kong and love everything, the rule of law here, the freedom here. But I think with the politics right now, sadly, it seems we are slowly eroding that one country, two system. And that will affect all of us. It will diminish our self-rule and our everyday life. And I'm quite scared of that, actually. And because that will affect my business, that will affect everybody's business, affect Hong Kong's position in the world. So yeah, that's a great fear as well.
Yeah, I do worry about that. What are your hopes for the future, for yourself and the world that we live in?
I hope I can continue to do what I'm passionate about. For the last few weeks, it has been very difficult because with the economy, I'm not sure how many companies are still willing to do workshops and stuff. I do have a few clients still active, but hopefully they will continue. And for the world, it's really learn from the mistake. I've been watching this documentary called The Pandemic on Netflix. And actually, there has been a lot of warning from the academic and the health profession that we have this coming. But we seem to be very unprepared. I think humanity as a whole, really, even when this is over, we shouldn't take it lightly. We should review how we treat the planet as a whole, because if we keep invading the different habitats, the different animals, it will come back to us. Yeah. And also how we prepared, and not just in Hong Kong, not just in America, but as a whole, how we develop a healthcare system, how we protect those who are underprivileged. I think that's a very big lesson we need to learn from here.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Benita. Benita, thank you for speaking to me today. It's been really, really insightful and really educative, and I really have appreciated you sharing your personal stories as well. And if my listeners wanted to get in touch with you for coaching or to learn more about Encompass or any of the tours that you're doing or any of the 7 million things that you're doing, how can they do that?
My company website, Encompass, is called www.encompasshk.com. That's my company website. I also have a personal website called coachbandforyouth.com. And if you just want to reach me personally, I can be reached at Benita Chick, BENITACHICK @gmail.com. And I welcome people ask me any questions, and I'm happy to answer them.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'll put all of that information in the show notes for our listeners so that they can get in touch with you. And for my listeners out there, if this is something that you feel passionate about and you've enjoyed my conversation with Benita, please can you share it with your friends and family? And please, can you rate and review us on iTunes, because that'll help Hong Kong Confidential go up the charts, and it'll help people find Benita and her wonderful business and all of her NGO work and charity work. And given the situation at the moment, I'm sure she'd love some more clients and some more people to work with. So please reach out to her. If you would like to sponsor Hong Kong Confidential on Patreon, you can go to www.patreon.com/Hong Kong Confidential. And for as little as $1 a month, you can hear Benita's secret answers to 4 secret questions that I'm going to ask her and put up on my Patreon page. And you can not only listen to Benita's answers, but you can listen to the answers of about my last 25 guests as well. So, Benita, we're going to sign off the podcast here now. So thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been really wonderful. And then we're going to go and do our secret Patreon questions for my lovely sponsors. Okay?
Okay.
So see you later.
Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it. I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.